Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Mysticall. Today, I want to bring you a Season 3 quick guide. There are a lot of questions I've been getting about just starting to get to learn Mistweaver, which is fantastic, and there are some things that are out of date with my last complete guide, but I also don't want to do like a 2-hour-long video again. So I'm going to just do a quick guide on Mistweaver PvP, talents, races, stats, rotation, everything like that, as short as I can, just so that people can just get right into playing Mistweaver. So with that said, let's jump right into the video. All right, I want to start off with races. So the number one best race in the game is Undead for Mistweaver, hands down, without a doubt. A lot of priests, a lot of Prez Evokers, a lot of warlocks, Dasher warlocks specifically. And what Undead gives you is Will the Forsaken, which removes any charm, fear, and sleep effects. But most importantly, it only puts your trinket on a 30-second cooldown. That is like the most important thing. The human racial puts, I think it just got buffed a little bit, where it puts your trinket on a 1-minute cooldown. The 30-second cooldown on trinket is absolutely fantastic. You could almost use your trinket again for the next DR chain. So that's very, very important. And again, a lot of the meta specs do have some kind of fear effect. So that's also crucial. The biggest use for Will the Forsaken is versus Prez Evokers when they go for an oppressing roar into sleepwalk, where it's like an 8-second sleepwalk. You can just will it. Normally you have to trinket it and then you don't have a trinket, which is awful. So easily Horde, definitely go Undead. If you're Alliance, Night Elf, it would probably be your best option. Those are really the only two options. Obviously, since Boomy is somewhat decent, you can go Gnome and you get Escape Artist, which gets you out of Root Beams, which is really good. Honestly, it's solid, but if you're not queuing to a Boomy, the results may vary. It's good into Frost Mages and DKs, but you're really just using it for Balance Druids. So overall, Horde or number one best racial, definitely Undead. If you don't want to play Undead or Horde, go Night Elf. Night Elf is pretty solid too. Next up, as far as stats go, so this changed a little bit. So if you're only playing Shuffle or BG Blitz primarily, like that's the number one thing you're doing, that's what you're spamming, I would recommend going Haste Verse. That is what I've been playing most of the season, and on most of my Mistweavers, that's what I've been playing. The reason for that is versatility is really important because it makes it a little bit more difficult for you to die when people swap to you. And haste is important because of it increases the tick rate of your hots, it reduces your GCD. The reason why you want to go haste is because Enveloping Mist is your best hot, and it has gotten buffed probably 3 or 4 times now. It was nerfed way back, honestly, last expansion, I would say. And then over the course of the War Within, they have buffed it quite a few times. So very important to stack haste as much as you can. I think on this monk, this is my main. I have 43% haste, 33% verse. Very solid. Mastery is garbage. They double nerfed Mastery. They nerfed how much it does, and then they also nerfed Resplendent Mist. So don't play Mastery. It's garbage. So focus on haste verse. Now, however, the one change that you want to make is if you are playing primarily 3v3 arena, so normal threes, I would recommend to go about 20% crit and then go haste verse. So on one of my Mistweavers where I've been testing it on, I have 20% crit and then I have 27% haste and verse. What that equals to is it equals to about just craft crit verse on one neck, and then make the 2 set with the 2 crit pieces, and you should have enough crit. Now, the reason for that is because Mistweaver normally has mana issues. However, when you stack a little bit of crit, your Mana Tea, just by default, when you spend mana, you get a stack of Mana Tea, and then you have a chance equal to your critical strike to gain an extra stack of Mana Tea. So if you have 20% crit, you have a 20% chance to get an extra stack of Mana Tea, and that's a lot of mana. I mean, if you stack this crit with the Energizing Brew, you drop this, go here, you'll never run out of mana. I have never, ever, since I've been playing crit, I've never lost a game because of mana, ever, no matter how long the game is, or no matter how high dampening is. So that is what I would recommend. Now, if you're playing a combination of all three, I would still probably recommend going a little bit of crit because, Mistweaver, mana issues, even in BG Blitz, it can be there. If team fights are a little long, if you're playing Eye of the Storm, if you're playing Battle for Gorneas, and though, you're playing against some pretty solid team, and the team fight goes a little longer, that extra mana is going to be very helpful. So, just a quick overview. If you're playing BG Blitz or Solo Shuffle, primarily play Haste Verse. If you're playing normal threes, get to about 20% crit and then put the rest into Haste Verse. As far as talents go, this is the baseline talent tree that I play pretty much every single arena. I do play Clash. So this is what I recommend for you. I would not recommend playing Clash. It is sadly getting removed next expansion, which I'm sad about, but that's okay. This is what I recommend. I'm not going to go too deep into these trees because, again, I'm trying to make this a quick guide. There's really not much to mention, genuinely. All of these on the left-hand tree, it's just defensives, Fort Brew, you got your statue, you got your port, And then you have Song of Chiji, which is your primary CC with your in-cap, which I'll talk about later. And then Soothing Mist, which is what makes all your healing spells instant. So that's pretty much the gist of the monk tree. There's really nothing too crazy about it. I do want to make this quick change, though, before we move on. You definitely want to play Conduit of the Celestials. As far as the Mistweaver tree, I mentioned it. Enveloping Mist is your #1 hot. Thunder Focus Tea. You're primarily going to be using this for Thunder Focus Tea and Enveloping Mist. I'll talk about in the rotation part of the video. Life Cocoon and all of these talents are just to make Life Cocoon stronger. This is your main absorption. Restoral, 100% every game. Never revival, always Restoral. And then down here, just Yulon, making Yulon stronger. Highly recommend playing Jade Bond because damage is so high right now. I think the extra absorption on your Chi Cocoons is really important. And then you also get free Enveloping Mist, which is really, really good. So that's really nice. Period to Peace allows you to swap your Soothing Mist, which is just amazing. So Soothing Mist, if I get Soothing Mist somebody, nobody. I can't Soothing Mist anybody. It follows your Vivify. So if I am channeling on here, then I Vivify myself. I'm gonna start channeling it on myself. So really good. And then the bread and butter of this build is that this is the Crackle build because they heavily nerfed Rushing Wind Kick. They killed it, sadly. So Jade Fire Teachings and Crackle. So those are very important. I'm going to have a section right after this talent section to go over passives that are important, but pretty much this build just revolves around Jade Fire Teachings and your Jade Empowerment. And then finally, you have Shaylun's Gift. So Shaylun's Gift is just your kind of big single target heal. I don't know if I have any... Do I have any big Shaylun gifts here? I have a 6 million Shaylun gift. It's really good for just a single target heal especially when there's interrupts available. So yeah, 8.6 million. So obviously when you get your modifiers up before that, but Shaylun's Gift is another pretty big spell. So that's it for the talent tree. As far as hero talents go, I play Conduit of the Celestials with 2 set. Very important. The only good thing about Mistweaver right now, going with the end of season 3, or during season 3, is the fact that your 2 set reduces the cooldown of our Life Cocoon from Thunder Focus Tea. So the big thing about Conduit of the Celestials, you don't really need to pay attention to anything else besides Heart of the Jade Serpent. So Heart of the Jade Serpent, Shaylun's Gift now calls upon Yulon to increase the recovery rate of Renewing Mist, Rising Sun Kick, Life Cocoon, and Thunder Focus Tea based on the number of clouds you consume. So a lot of spells. The most important one is Life Cocoon. That's it. And then with 2 set, what you do is it now impacts with your Thunder Focus Tea. So if I use Thunder Focus Tea, I'm gonna get a buff here somewhere. It should be right here, Heart of the Jade Serpent. And then if I had any stacks of Shaylun's Gift, I would also use it and get the cooldown reduction on Life Cocoon. So, and then you also have Conduit of the Celestials. So this is the cooldown you get from playing Conduit of the Celestials, Celestial Conduit. And it's very good. It's really good healing. Definitely want to use it last in rotation, but I'll talk about the rotation of healing cooldowns. But yeah, this is pretty much what I play every single game. The only thing I would potentially change would be if you're not queuing into like a pet class, you could drop 1 Overflowing Mist and go into Energizing Brew simply for more mana. If you feel like mana is an issue, play that. Overflowing Mist has been nerfed quite a few times, so it's kind of lackluster these days, but that's what I would play. And these are my talents nearly every single game. As far as PvP talents go, #1 Peaceweaver every single game, without a doubt. What this does is whenever you use Restoral, whoever gets healed by it is immune to magical effects, harmful and damage effects for 2 seconds after that. So you can immune so much CC or damage, right? If you're Hodge, you can immune Repentance, you can immune Chaos Bolts, you can immune Blinding Light, you can immune Polymorph. And the reason you can do that while stunned is because you're playing Restoral that can be used while stunned. So Peaceweaver every single game. Now, since you're playing the Crackle build, if you're playing against mostly range interrupts, Zen Focus Tea is a lock, but I would also say Zen Spheres is pretty much a lock. So what this does is when you could use 1 Sphere of Hope on a teammate and 1 Sphere of Despair on an enemy. So if I put Sphere of Hope on myself, what it does is that target takes 15% more healing from you. If you put it on an enemy, that enemy will be doing 3% less damage and then taking 10% increased damage. So very, very important to have both up. There is a 6-second cooldown. Not the biggest fan of the cooldown, but just try to weave those into your rotation as much as you can. For nothing else, always make sure you have Sphere of Hope on your teammate because this is what gives you 15% extra healing, which is fantastic. As far as the third one goes, again, it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up depending on the comp you're going into. So Eminence, really good into setup comps. RMP, that have the stuns. Also good if you feel like you're going to die. I also play this into every Holy Pally or Rep Pally because they're all playing Repentance, every single one of them. Hodge Rep, painful, just play Eminence. You can avoid it. Put your port behind the pillar. This allows you to use port while stunned. Zen Focus Tea gives you an aura mastery. So Zen, every time you Thunder Focus Tea, you're immune to silence and interrupt effects right here. So you're immune. It's fantastic. Use it when you're playing to teams with range kicks, especially if you're not playing with any caster. One big thing in solo shuffle that I notice is you need to be changing your talents, PvP talents, depending on what you're queuing with. If you're queuing with a rogue and a warrior, and you're playing against a mage and a warlock, you're the only person those people can kick, right? So you need to be playing Zen Focus Tea to guarantee your healing. It's very, very important. However, you can gamble. If I'm playing with a mage and a warlock, and I'm queuing into like a warlock and a shaman or something, you could take the risk, you know, it's fine. They got to be kicking somebody that's not you. Otherwise, the mage is going to be getting polys, the warlock's going to be getting chaos bolts and fears. So, I mean, if they're kicking you, it sucks, but it's also not the end of the world because they don't have kicks for CC from the mage, CC from the warlock. So, again, depends on the comp you're queuing into and queuing with, but overall, Zen Focus Tea, pretty much use it into range interrupts, and especially if you're playing with 2 melee. Grapple Weapon, really good into MM Hunters, Warriors, Rogues, DKs, did I say Rogue? Something like that. Pretty much any melee I play Grapple Weapon into, and especially MM Hunters, very important. This just allows you to stop damage. That's pretty much it. It's really nice. So, Grapple Weapon, mainly used into MM Hunters, but also, you know, Warriors, DKs, Rogues, stuff like that. DKs. And then that is pretty much it. The only toss-up is I've seen some people use Absolute Serenity. I don't know. I think I've seen people drop Eminence for Absolute Serenity. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I'd rather be able to avoid the CC rather than, like, I'd rather be put on Stun DR and then avoid the follow-up CC than not get put on Stun DR and immune it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's dumb. Absolute Serenity is pretty good. It makes, when you cast Celestial Conduit, you are immune to all CC during this duration, which is nice. Don't get me wrong. It's really, really nice. I just would rather have more control. Like, the Celestial Conduit is a 1.5-minute cooldown, you know, and then Eminence gives me a 25-second port. So, you know, I think that's kind of important to note. I'd rather play Eminence than Absolute Serenity. I don't play Absolute Serenity often. So, I would recommend Peaceweaver, Zen Spheres, and then the third one is completely depending on what you're queuing into. You got to mix and match. You got to play around there with what works for you, what comp you're playing with, what comp you're playing against. But for the most part, these 3 right here should get you pretty far. I want to talk about passives before we talk about anything else. I'm going to try to make this section quick because you could talk quite a bit about Mistweaver passives and stuff like that. The primary passive I want to talk about is your Jadefire Teachings. So Jadefire Teachings, what it does is it makes Ancient Teachings transfer an additional 215% damage to healing. But what is Ancient Teachings? So if we go into the Mistweaver tree and then we uncheck hide passives, we should be able to find our Ancient or Teachings of the Map. Where is it? Don't hide from me. Right here. So what Ancient Teachings is your Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, and Crackling Jade Lightning heals allies for 30% of damage done. This is a baseline spell. This is not a talent. So if I just run up to a dummy and I Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, or Blackout Kick, or Crackle, 30% of that damage gets converted to healing, right? So with Jadefire Teachings, when you press Thunder Focus Tea, that's going to make it so you do 215% more damage gets converted to healing. So there's that. So that's every time you Thunder Focus Tea. And then on top of that, you have Jade Empowerment. So every time you use Thunder Focus Tea, your next Crackling Jade Lightning does 2,000% more damage. So that's it, right? So what the build is every time you Thunder Focus Tea, you get the Jadefire Teachings buff, and then you just crackle with your Jade Empowerment. That's the build. That's the bread and butter of this build. I'll talk more about how to maximize that healing in the healing rotation section, but that is that's pretty much the main passive I wanted to talk to you all about, is that right there. That and Heart of the Jade Serpent are pretty much the 2 buffs you want to be paying attention to. Outside of that, I can't think of any other passives that you would want to care about besides those. All right, let's start talking about rotation. So Mistweaver Monk, the reason why it kind of struggles is because you might as well just call the rotation a priority of modifiers. That's what you're doing. So very quickly, before we talk about the rotation, I want to talk about the primary modifiers to your healing spells, because if you just try to heal, like with Vivify, for example, your healing spells are doing nothing. If you've ever run into a situation where you're like, damn, my Shaylin skits, I feel like should I heal a little bit more than that? I know the issue. So let's just start off with talk about the modifiers. First of all, Enveloping Mist. This is our primary hot, but it also it's a hot, but it also increases the healing that your whoever has the hot on them, the healing they get is received 40% more. So very important, 40% more healing with whoever has this hot on them. Very, very important to use before you use your crackle. You also have Chi Harmony. So the first 8 seconds of Renewing Mist is a different icon. And I think if I go into LFG super quick, let me just go to pre-made groups, custom starter group, you could see the icon. So this is the icon where it's Chi Harmony, and then you should see it go away. So those first 8 seconds that your teammate is taking 15% more healing, which is really, really nice. And then you also have Zen Sphere, which is the PvP talent we just talked about. The other modifier is Peaceful Mending. This is, it's kind of a brainless, you don't really pay too much attention to it, but what you do is whoever has Soothing Mist on them, including your statue, gets 40% more healing from Enveloping Mist and Renewing Mist. So it's not really anything to really be mindful of, but just keep it in mind that, you know, you could technically always keep your Soothing Mist, especially your statue, on whoever's taking damage, which is pretty important. So those are your modifiers. You have 3 modifiers that you want to keep in mind, and you always want to try to maintain them on your teammates as much as possible. So the rotation is actually fairly simple, right? I always try to keep my Renewing Mist up, especially Chi Harmony. I always try my best to do that. Renewing Mist, and then from there, it depends on if there's interrupts, but for the most part, I'm probably going to also make sure you got your Zen Sphere out. So this is a lot of healing already, big healing. And then follow it up with a Thunder Focus Tea Enveloping Mist. So now you have all 3 of your modifiers up, and then Crackle. As long as you maintain your modifiers on your teammates, that's as good as it's going to get. That's the basic rotation. You just have your 3 modifiers: Thunder Focus Tea, Enveloping Mist, Crackle. So let's try to build off of that. The next thing you want to weave into your rotation, Mistweaver, is to Mana Tea. So Mana Tea, when you spend mana, you get a stack of Mana Tea. If you're stacking crit, you'll get more stacks. When you channel it, you get mana back for each second, and then you get Mana Tea back, which reduces the cooldown of your spells. So what you want to do is you always want to try to Mana Tea, Thunder Focus Tea, and then Crackle, and then Enveloping Mist as well. So always try to Enveloping Mist when you have Mana Tea up. Outside of that, that's like the most important thing, I would say. Just always try to Mana Tea before Enveloping Mist. One quick note is you can use your Thunder Focus Tea while channeling Soothing Mist. So when you're just channeling Soothing Mist here, you can Thunder Focus Tea as well, right? And then just go back to healing like normal, and then follow it up with the Crackle and all that. So that's really important. It just helps with rotation be fluid. You could also do the same thing with Mana Tea. A lot of people actually don't know that you can do this, but you can use your Thunder Focus Tea while channeling Mana Tea as well. So because Thunder Focus Tea is off the GCD, what you could do, if you only have 2 stacks of Mana Tea, you could actually go for a quick Enveloping Mist. So Mana Tea, Thunder Focus Tea, Enveloping Mist. And it's quick. Like, you don't need like a bunch of stacks of Mana Tea to get a mana reduction on your Enveloping Mist. You can do it like pretty quickly. So we have Mana Tea, we have our basic rotation. Let's also weave in our Yu'lon. So Yu'lon is a pretty big cooldown. This is normally my first cooldown that I press in a game. And what she does is she gives you another hot. So this is another modifier that gives whoever has an Enveloping Mist on them, you have to cast Enveloping Mist, but it'll put a 10% healing increase on your target. And then you also get Chi Cocoons because of Jade Bond, right? Jade Bond gives you stronger Chi Cocoons and then gives you free Enveloping Mist. And I'll show you the free Enveloping Mist in a sec. So literally the same thing. So the reason you want to be using your mana as efficiently as you can is because you can run out of mana at some point, and Enveloping Mist costs a lot of mana. So normally what I'll do is I'll get just a few stacks. You know, this is my first cooldown, so I'm kind of hoping that I have a few stacks. What I'll do is I will press my Mana Tea into a Yu'lon and Thunder Focus Tea, throw an Enveloping Mist out, and then Crackle. And then since I have my Enveloping Mist with the Yu'lon up, I should be getting another hot, but it's hiding with all of these buffs, dear Lord. So yeah, no, it's pretty good. That's a lot of healing. And then you also get the free Enveloping Mist when the Chi Cocoon goes away. So I think Yu'lon, that it might have gone away, but when that Jade Bond shield goes away, you get a free Enveloping Mist, which also helps with your mana as well. So that is probably the most amount of healing and mana reduction you're going to do. When you Yu'lon's off and, you know, you've used your Life Cocoon and all that, I'll also follow it up with the Shaylin's Gift. And I've gotten the question a lot too, is like, my Shaylin's Gift isn't healing a lot. It's absolutely because you're not using your modifiers 100%. Shaylin's Gift, it's decent healing, but you're only going to get like maybe a 5 million heal if you don't have modifiers up. You have to make sure, especially minimum, try to have Enveloping Mist plus either Zen Sphere or Renewing Mist up, one or the other, but definitely have your Envelop Mist and then Shayloon's Gift. And I don't know what that healed for, but I think it healed for a decent amount. Yeah, Shayloon's Gift. Yeah, 13 million Shayloon's Gift there. So very important to always have that healing going. But that is essentially the healing rotation in a nutshell, right? I'm going to do another quick overview of the rotation, but that is pretty much it. Thunder Focus Tea, I don't want to get too far into it because that could take its own video. You're primarily using Thunder Focus Tea with Enveloping Mist. That's pretty much what you're using. There are some times where you use it for Expel Harm for the shield. You don't use it that often. You don't really use it for Vivify anymore either, just because you don't really Vivify too much these days. So again, this is the rotation as straightforward as I can without getting into anything crazy, just straightforward. So always make sure that you get a few stacks of Mana Tea, which would be nice. It's always nice to have some Mana Tea. I'm just waiting for my Yulon to come back. But pretty much the basic rotation: Soothing Mist, Enveloping Mist, Vivify when you have to. Make sure you get Renewing Mist and your Zen Sphere out, and then you just Thunder Focus Tea Crackle. That's the rotation. Now, what you're going to want to do on top of that is you want to weave in your other spells. So you want to weave in your Mana Tea and your Yulon. Now, usually I try to stagger them because they're both giving mana reduction, but there are situations where, you kind of want to stack both, and Yulon does quite a bit of healing. So it's really good to match with other cooldowns, so 2-minute cooldowns. That's what I try to do. And then what I'll do is I'll Mana Tea, Thunder Focus Tea while I'm channeling it, Yulon, Enveloping Mist for the extra hots, and then Crackle. That's pretty much it. Yeah, you got your main hots out. One passive I also do want to know is Rapid Diffusion. So whenever you Enveloping Mist or Rising Sun kick, it'll apply Renewing Mist. So you don't need to press Renewing Mist every time, right? You could see I just used all I'm going to use. Let me get rid of these hots real quick. Let me get rid of this, and Envelop Mist will drop off. So you could see I just have Renewing Mist on me. If I just Envelop Mist right now, you could see one of my things went here, and it should get Chi Harmony. That Renewing Mist gets Chi Harmony. So just keep that in mind. You don't really need to use Renewing Mist every time. You could just kind of use Enveloping Mist to get the Chi Harmony. It's a little RNG who it goes on, but if you don't have time, the Thunder Focus Tea Enveloping Mist will most of the time just be fine. And then after that, if you need more healing, you also have Shayloon's Gift to follow that up with. So that is the healing rotation. If you have any questions about that at all, I know it's a little quicker than what I normally do, hopefully. But yeah, that's the rotation as simplified as I can make it. I mentioned in the hero talent section that we'll talk about cooldown rotation. Now, this is an extremely important part to playing Conduit of the Celestials and Mistweaver. So I spoke about it. Heart of the Jade Serpent. This is a buff you get when you press Shayloon's Gift and Thunder Focus Tea when you have 2 set, and then also when you press Celestial with the Conduit, you just press it again and it'll activate all the Celestials. So what this means is you need to use Life Cocoon first. That Life Cocoon should be your first cooldown for a single target, or whenever some kind of cooldown goes out from the enemy team. You absolutely need to press this, because if you use the worst thing you could possibly do, if you use Thunder Focus Tea, Conduit, and your Shayloon's Gift, and you're missing out on all of the Heart of the Jade Serpent buff for your cooldown reduction on Life Cocoon, you might as well just not be playing Mistweaver. The only good thing about Mistweaver right now is you can make Life Cocoon essentially a 50-second cooldown, and I'll try my best to show you the type of cooldown reduction you can get on it. As soon as I get to 10 stacks of Shayloon's Gift, hopefully it doesn't bug. Sometimes Life Cocoon bugs a little bit when you're trying to activate everything at the same time, but I'll still try my best. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use Life Cocoon and use all the cooldowns to make it as low of a cooldown as possible, to kind of show you what you could be missing out on if you kind of misstep with your cooldown. So most importantly, use Life Cocoon, start the timer. Thunder Focus Tea is normally what I start with, just because you can kind of reduce the cooldown and everything else. And then Shayloon's Gift. So you get the stacks from Heart of the Jade Serpent, and hopefully it doesn't bug. And then you Conduit. And then you can press it again to get the cool reduction. So you're going to get Heart of the Jade Serpent for 8 seconds. And then you should get Thunder Focus Tea again. So you can Thunder Focus Tea and increase this again. And you could just see the cooldown reduction. You could even go for a baby Shayloon if you wanted to, and then you're going to get Thunder Focus Tea faster. So you could see just how fast the cooldown reduction is on Life Cocoon. And it's really what makes Mistweaver so good right now. Or not good, but it's the one good thing about Mistweaver. So this is actually a 37-second Life Cocoon. You can do this every time you have Celestial Conduit. So every minute and a half, probably every other Life Cocoon, you can use Celestial Conduit, which is really nice. Outside of Celestial Conduit, you're probably looking at more of a 55-second Life Cocoon, but I'm just trying to show you just how important it is to make sure the rotation of spells is always, you know, first let Thunder Focus, he's fine, but the rotation should always be Life Cocoon first, and then Shaylun's Gift and Conduit whenever you have Life Cocoon on cooldown. And then from there, your rotation is the same after that. Just it's the initial cooldown rotation that's very important when you're playing your Mistweaver. Offensively, Mistweaver has a few things that we can kind of deal with things. The first offensive, the most important thing is, again, Zen Focus. It's not really defensive, but this makes you immune to CCs, not immune to CC. Makes you immune to interrupt and silences when you Thunder Focus T. So make sure you use that to guarantee your Crackling Jade Lightning, because that is a channel. People will wait to interrupt it. So make sure you're using that to your advantage. And then you have Fort Brew, which is a damage reduction, increases your health, reduces damage you take. And then you have Diffuse Magic, which you can do some fun stuff with it. It reduces spell damage you take by 40%, and then you reverse magic effects back to the original caster. So any kind of dot will get reversed back. As far as other defensives, you have Life Cocoon. This is one of your primary defensives for your teammates. This is just a big absorption shield, and it also applies Renewing Mist and Envelop Mist, and then also makes it so your teammate, whoever has it, will take 50% more healing from you. A really good combo is Life Cocoon, and if they're low on health, hit them with the Shaylun's Gift. That's what I do a lot of the time. Always make sure you Shaylun after, so you have those modifiers up, but always try your best to recover when you have Life Cocoon, because people will try to Cyclone and CC you doing it. It's kind of annoying, but Life Cocoon, Shaylun's Gift on top of it, your teammate will be topped. And then finally, you have Revival, Peaceweaver. Revival heals all, your teammates within, a 40-yard range. This is buffed in Arena, so that's very important. It's buffed by like 100%. So the healing's actually manageable. And then most importantly, it's castable while stunned. So you can use it while stunned, use it to avoid CC. Especially if you can avoid CC and heal your teammates that are low health with this, beautiful. So just keep that in mind. And then obviously with Peaceweaver, you can immune CC. Someone's trying to get into my group. You can immune CC and damage as well with Restoral. So keep that in mind when you're stunned. Very, very important cooldown to have. And it's like a 2 minutes and like 35 seconds or something like that. It's a long cooldown, which is a little painful, but it's useful when you need it. That is pretty much it for the quick guide. Again, I really wanted to make this a quick guide to go over, just help anybody get started who might be starting to play Mistweaver, especially as we go towards the end of the season, where a lot more people are going to be playing, inflation's going to be higher, people are going to be more incentivized to PvP, which is always exciting. So again, if you have any questions at all, please let me know. I am more than happy to answer any questions you have. And that is it for me. If you have any questions at all, let me know. But that is it. Hope everyone has a fantastic day. Hope you do the video, and I'll see you later.